were watching Live with Mama Coco, a current affairs and lifestyle program that touches on what matters to you. Enjoy watching this live? Share it. Know of a great guest for Live with Mama Coco? Click book now on our page and input their contact details or call 702-577-0848 to talk to our team. Check out Mama Coco's Life and Style shop and purchase Mama Coco's book Unbreakable Spirit, or get Mama Coco's apparel collection inspired by her artworks and sayings. Live with Mama Coco is produced and distributed by Girl Powered Success and Survival International.
Hi, hello, we are live with Mama Coco. Yes, this is Mama Coco Life and Style Wednesday evening, and I'm so happy to be here. My name is Cora Pantin, and I'm not only just happy to be here, but I'm happier because we are having Dr. Faith B.Yisrael here with us. Yes, and she's going to be touching on some topics that's trendy and trending in Tobago for Tobagonians living locally or living abroad. Mama Coco is here this evening, and I'm trying to be in my best spirits. Yes, because my show requires it. And because my audience, you guys are here with me through thick and thin. You guys don't know, sometimes I brave it to be here. Because, you know, as human beings, we all have our own situations sometimes to deal with. But Mama Coco here is live, and I'm excited to bring you this evening Dr. Faith B.Yisrael. But Almighty God, until she's here, I ask in you, Blessed Father, to continue to chaperone my show, chaperone my life, be a part of my life. Dear God, I ask, I beseech thee, I humbly beseech thee. I can feel your presence every day, because I try my best to live and walk with you and to talk with you and to treat your people the way you want me to treat them. So without further ado, I want to thank Dr. Duke, my daughter. She is the producer and editor of the show. I want to thank my team that work with us, 5 of them. And I want to say peace this evening, and blessed be the tie that binds our heart in Christian love. This evening, even if you are not a Christian, but you are here with me, you are my brother and you are my sister, and I welcome you now to Live with Mama Coco, as I welcome the one and only Dr. Faith B.Yisrael, very astute and very brilliant, one that is going to take us to places where we really want to go. She will let us know whether we are growing or whether we are or whether we are stunted. She's going to let us know about the way of life and how we should live under the act of the Tobago House of Assembly. Peace, everybody. Be comforted by Dr. Faith B.Yisrael.
Thank you so much. It's an honor being here, and yes, I am relishing in the assemblyman title. I am. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, you are so welcome. We are waiting for you. Yes, Dr. Faith. of your last visit so people will know that you're not a newcomer and that you also have your audience here waiting for you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. B.Yisrael.
Well, you know, it's really nice seeing that intro. I really enjoy that intro. So congratulations to you. Congratulations to the entire team. It's an honor being back on the show tonight.
Well, your people are waiting for you. So Assemblyman Dr. Faith B.Yisrael, how have you been since your last appearance on Live with Mama Coco back in early February?
Yes,
and you will remind us in February was after what?
Yes, so in early February, that was just after the elections. The elections were in January 25th. So early February was just after that newly minted, as they say, Assemblyman. How has it been since then? It's actually been pretty okay. We've had, of course, we know that we are still in the stalemate with the 6-6 situation happening. So we are still trying to work that out. I am still learning about this act of being an assemblyman and what that means and how much the people of Goodwood-Belle Garden are looking at me.
Yeah. The reason why I want you to emphasize, you were around the assembly, but not as an assemblyman.
Exactly. I was a counselor for the last 4 years. But in many instances, I actually served as if I were the assemblyman because I worked in the community regardless of whether I had won or lost the election. So it was fun doing it in that capacity. It's a lot of fun doing it in this capacity. As a matter of fact, this evening I spent some time walking through Belle Garden, just walking through, because every so often I pick a village and we just move through the village to get a sense of what's happening. So we were doing that, and it is really nice to see the welcome that we are getting, those individuals who, whether they voted for us or not, telling us that they're really proud of what we've been able to do thus far, even though we are still at the stalemate now, but they are really proud of what the PDP has been able to accomplish in the short years that we've been around. So that has been fun. That has been exciting. And, you know, you live and you learn. I'm learning as I go along, and it's just part of the process.
So may I ask you a little question? Do you feel different now as you are going to be paid as a assemblyman instead of just having a little stipend as a councillor?
Well, to be honest, the stipend as a councillor was tiny. The stipend as an assemblyman, because an assemblyman without a portfolio still is rarely getting a stipend because it's not much more than what I was getting as a councillor. So it really isn't that much more. You really get the quote unquote, the big salary when you become a secretary or assistant secretary. And we are not able to get to that point because of the stalemate.
I like that. That is very informative. I didn't know we were going to go there.
Yeah.
So you are still being paid small change. You're waiting to become a secretary.
Yes, if you are an assemblyman without a portfolio, then that is the second lowest tier in the rank of salaries within the Tobago House of Assembly, the lowest tier. And so I am thankful. The lowest tier is where I was for the last 4 years as a councillor, as a minority councillor. But the tier just above that is an assemblyman without a portfolio.
So this really not your business, but you know, I am an all-rounder and a people's person. So seeing that Cunningham never had a secretariat post, how was he paid?
Well, he was actually paid as an assistant secretary. So his salary is actually different to the salary of a secretary.
Wow.
So there are basically maybe 4 or 5 levels. There's the presiding officer, the chief sec, the deputy chief sec, the secretaries, assistant secretaries, assemblymen with no portfolio, and the lowest of that is the councillors with no portfolio.
Get out of here, doctor. I think someone else need you somewhere else. Get out of here.
Well, I don't know. People have been trying to convince me that I am absolutely wasting my time here in Tobago and I'm wasting my talents. I am not quite there yet. I am still willing to give this island. I said at the beginning of the political career that I was going to give the island 10 years, and 10 years we haven't gotten to 10 years yet. So I am still willing to give it my all. I'm still willing to do as best as I can given the situation. So I am not ready to give up yet. And it was Tobago educated me. The Tobago House of Assembly educated me. So I went to school here, and then even when I went to the United States, it was a teacher that paid for my undergrad degree. So I feel a level of allegiance to the island, and I think that even though I could definitely make more money elsewhere, even though I could probably get way more respect elsewhere, I am willing to do this because Tobago. I am a Tobagonian, and that is Tobagonian first and everything else after.
So you are you are proud to be giving back, because this is a form of giving back.
It is. It certainly is. Yes.
My goodness, I have to take a deep breath. And so the audience should do also, because this is very vital information, because there is no way anyone should be sitting back for years and being treated and being treated unfairly, and to be treated without respect.
Exactly. And that is in essence what is happening, because I see the question on the screen in terms of the current update in the status of the THA with the 6-6. In essence, there are now 12 assemblymen, 6 from the PDP, 6 from the PNM side. The 6 from the PDP are not in any executive council, and I'm not sure many people know that the executive council is actually the arm of the Tobago House of Assembly that is responsible for managing. So if you are a secretary in a particular division, then you are part of the executive council. But because we are not able to resolve the 6-6 impasse just yet, none of the 12 of us, and I think this is something that needs to be clearly understood, none of the 12 of us who are newly elected are secretaries. What we have is a hold over executive council from the last THA term. So, for example, I use the example of Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine. Last term, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine was appointed as a councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly, and because she was a councillor, she was given the position of Secretary of Health, Wellness and Family Development. Assemblyman Tracy Davidson Celestine, who, the person who won the election in January, Assemblyman Tracy Davidson Celestine is not the current Secretary of Health. Councillor Tracy Davidson Celestine is the current Secretary of Health, not this assemblyman who we are all in the positions that we all have now. So I don't think that many people understand that is what is happening. It really is the Executive Council holding over, the old Executive Council holding over, because the new Tobago House of Assembly is not able to constitute the Executive Council just yet.
Oh my goodness. To my audience, are you guys getting it, or should we repeat this answer? I've got it. I know a lot of people got it, but it sounds so complicated and unbelievable.
Yeah.
I really don't know. So is that a right thing to do, or is it wrong, or is it legal or illegit?
Well, I mean, technically, it is legal according to what is written in the Tobago House of Assembly Act. And it was created so that there are provisions for let me give an example. Let's just say we had the election January 25th, right? We had the election January 25th. The president came up and gave us our oaths of office to be an assemblyman on the 28th, right? So that happened. Let's just say on the 28th, as we were driving from Magdalena to go back up to the Assembly Legislature to vote for a presiding officer, there was some catastrophic thing that happened, where maybe there was a hurricane that happened, or an earthquake or something that happened that could not that prevented us from finishing the process. The act basically is there that says, if that happens,
was it a literal earthquake or just a political earthquake in the People's National Movement Act?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just coincidental. Let's just say that that is what a happenstance, that is what happened. The act is there to allow for the old executive council to continue basically running the island until the new executive council is put in place.
So that is something with a lot of urgency.
Right, exactly. So there was a disaster, there was something that we still need the island to run, then the island can still run while we fix, while we deal with that, while people are able to get their positions. So it was really put in place because of that kind of scenario. It was not put in place for this kind of scenario where we simply cannot come to an agreement, and because we can't come to an agreement, we cannot get the presiding officer elected, and therefore the chief secretary elected, because it is the chief secretary who then has to write to the president and say, this is who I want to be secretary for health, secretary for finance, and so forth. So it is that little part that we are unable to get to because we are unable to come to an agreement. And let me just say a little bit, because the question talks about the constitutional and legal barriers that prevent that from happening. The presiding, because we've never had a 6-6 tie situation, whenever we go to the House, so last term when there was a 10-2 situation, when we went to the House, even though we had the right to, meaning the PDP had the right to put up a person to be presiding officer, we knew we did not have the numbers for that person to win. So we did not even bother nominating somebody for presiding officer, right? But in this situation, because it's 6-6, we came with a nominee, they came with a nominee for presiding officer. And both parties knew that because there is a 6-6 tie, according to the Tobago House of Assembly Act, when we get to the point of voting for a chief secretary, the presiding officer can break a tie if a tie exists, which is why both parties were saying, we really, really want whoever is your presiding officer, because it's most likely that your presiding officer will vote for your pick for chief secretary. Mm-hmm. And because of that, because we understood that that is where the impasse was, that is why when we started saying to the PDP, let us negotiate, that is why we said to them, we are willing to give up the position of presiding officer, which means we are also willing to give up the position of chief secretary so that we can move this thing along.
Forward, yes.
So that we can move it forward, because that is where the impasse was. And now that we have given up the two most senior positions in the Tobago House of Assembly, which is the chief sec and the presiding officer, what we are saying is that it is only fair, because it's both of us with 6, that we get another of the senior positions, which is the minister, this is the secretary of finance position. And then we went again and we said, okay, and we would also like to have a couple of the other divisions equally divided among ourselves. Like health, because it's quite obvious that I would get the division of health because of my qualifications and my competencies and so forth. But
because of what? Give us your reasons again.
As my qualifications. So for those who don't know, I have a bachelor's degree in neuroscience, because originally I wanted to become a neurosurgeon. I wanted to go to med school and become a neurosurgeon, but that didn't happen. I decided I didn't want to go to med school again. I have a master's degree in public health and a doctoral degree in public health, both in behavioral and community health sciences. So those degrees means that I am probably the most senior public health professional on the island. And it's kind of obvious then that is where I would go. I would be placed in the division with responsibility for health. But I just wanted to make it clear also to those who are listening. The last time we had a meeting with the members of the PNM, one of the reasons we had the breakdown was simply because we did not think that it was okay for us to just say to them, here are 4 names, and then for them to decide where those 4 names go. Because that is in essence what they wanted to do. We say here are the 4 names, and then they pick where those 4 names would go. And what we were saying is that that is not fair. We are in a Exactly. We are in a negotiation, and in the negotiation, the only reason you will have the position of chief secretary is because we, the PDP, have given up the position of chief secretary,
Yeah.
and we are saying you can have that position. And if, because that is what we are doing, because we are negotiating, we should then have a full conversation about who goes where, so that when the chief secretary writes to the president, everyone already knows, yes, Faith is going health, Zia is going wherever, Whitey is going wherever, Mrs. Maslin is going wherever, so that we all have come to that kind of agreement. That is what we were talking about. And that is what they were completely against. And we really couldn't understand why would they be so against something that to us is very simple. We are in negotiations. We are trying to work it out. We are trying to bring this to a point where my 6 and your 6 is equal.
Is equal. So do you think we have a statement or question here from Lydia Hernandez, but do you think that your political sister, Mrs. Tracy Davidson Celestine, do you think she understands exactly what is going on around her?
I don't know, because I've heard her make mention, for example, of certain laws or certain rules in the Tobago House of Assembly that when we read it, that was not our interpretation of what the law says. And when other scholars, legal minds, spoken about it, they were in agreement with the PDP, even though we did not have any conversations with them. So, for example, Senior Counsel Martin Daly has been going on different, radio talk shows and so forth, and we have never had a conversation with Martin Daly saying, this is what we think. Martin Daly, which is a senior counsel in Trinidad, Martin Daly. And he has basically been espousing exactly what we have been espousing, which says that, we are in a negotiation. It's not that any party won outright. And because we are in a negotiation, there is no reason why we cannot negotiate for the positions and come to an agreement of what these positions should be before that information gets sent to the president. And to me, that's a very simple issue. And we're not sure why they are harping on not allowing us to just resolve it amicably. And that is why we then said, let us then get a mediator, have a neutral third party or neutral third parties in the room to have the conversations with us. And they again said they are not interested in having mediators in the room. So
do you think that our president, seeing that she's the one, she came up to swear you guys in as assemblymen, do you think she has anything that she can do or say to clear this impasse and making it easier so you guys can get to work? We need you guys to get to work.
We need to get to work. Legally, I am not sure that she's willing to make a step one way or the other. But I would like to just say, tomorrow morning, Assemblyman Farley is going to be doing a press conference, and we are going to speak then about some of the other steps that we have taken to try to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. So look out for that tomorrow morning. I don't think it's my place to say what he's supposed to say tomorrow morning. Yes.
Yeah. And quite frankly, we really want to hear from you guys, because the PNM doesn't say anything. All they do is to criticize and come up with more That can't make Tobago happen. And I'm surprised that Mrs. Davidson Celestine, she cannot reason better. But the reason why I believe she cannot reason better is because she doesn't know anything about the rules and bylaws of the Tobago House of Assembly.
Which is if that is really the case, that is disappointing, because she has been there for many, many years.
See if you can tabulate a rough number for us, a rough estimate of how long she has been in the political realm of.
As far as I can remember, she served 2 terms before this one, because remember she was the assistant secretary for was it
Or
education? I can't remember. She was an assistant secretary at one point, and at another point, she was a secretary for tourism. So she has served at least 2 terms in the Orville London administration, at least 2 terms, and each term is
4.
right now. So Orville was there for 4, but in terms of Mrs. Davidson Celestine, I am sure that she has served at least 2 terms. It's possibly more, but she has served at least 2 terms. So she should know for a fact what these rules say, because it's the same Tobago House of Assembly law that we've been using for the last 20 years or so.
Moving on, my people. Dr. Faith is here and she's ready to answer all our questions. She has studied the Tobago House of Assembly Act, which is very, very, very noble and very, very professional of you, so that you will be able to speak, so people can repeat after you. You can speak and people can quote you. You can speak and people can say, well, let me send you to speak with Dr. Faith. She can give you a better eloquent answer, because her eloquence is so high above many.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're certainly welcome.
Thank you.
Next, someone says something here to you. What?
Somebody's asking, when will Tracy be on this live?
I don't know. She wouldn't come. I'm gonna try to invite her, but PNM wouldn't come on my live. I don't know if they think that this is a PDP forum. It's not. I am here with PDP people because I want to watch into the camera and speak, because I do not lie. I do not make up story. PDP are the only ones that really educating the people of Trinidad and Tobago about what are the reasons for us going to the polling stations. Why do we vote? Why we should not vote? Who should we vote for? And what should we expect from someone who wins an election and is about to represent the people of Trinidad and Tobago? So, Faith, give yourself a round of applause. That's why you are here.
Thank you so much. And a lot of people have actually said that since we've come on the scene, they've actually learned quite a bit about what is happening in the Tobago House of Assembly, because they did not know what was happening.
100%. So what Hernandez Sandra is saying to you?
That Mrs. she can't speak without permission from her boss.
Which I know that. I know Keith Rowley wouldn't wanted to come on my live. I wouldn't insult her. I wouldn't rough her up. I'll just ask her the questions that the people want her to answer to. That's all.
So Earl Henry is asking, where in Tobago is this wonderful woman from? If no one speaks up, I'll claim her for bon accord. I'm sorry, Earl. I'm from Belle Garden, born and bred in the east of the island.
Yes, Earl, we ain't giving up with country things. The man from Canaan said that country can't, rule?
Country can't rule tongue.
Yes.
Chester is asking, what would trigger a re-election? Okay, so let me, that is a critical question. And it's important to note that
I think we question to that nature, but answer my friend Chester Birchwood.
Yes. So there are 2 things that are happening legislatively right now. There is the Tobago Autonomy Bill that is before the Joint Select Committee of the Parliament. This is the Tobago Autonomy Bill, well, the version that is before the Parliament, that was given to Dr. Keith Rowley in 2016, 2015, 2016, around that time. And by Mr. Orville London, because it's one of the last things Mr. Orville London did before demitting office in 2016. And he took that to Parliament. It finally was laid in Parliament in 2018. It went through that first term, lapsed, and it is now before Parliament again, before the Joint Select Committee. Now, the Tobago Autonomy Bill is a version of the kind of greater autonomy that Tobago wants and Tobago needs to have. The Tobago House of Assembly Act is a simple act of Parliament. And yes, it gives us quite a bit of autonomy, but the people of Tobago have really been clamoring for way more than that. So that autonomy bill is before the Joint Select Committee, and it is due, the report is due to be out within the next 2 months or so. So there's that happening. Right after the 6-6 impasse, without coming to the PDP at least, the Prime Minister took 2 amendments of the current Tobago House of Assembly Act to the Parliament to be amended. One of the amendments is to change the seats from 12 to 15, because in their minds, 15, there's no way we can get a tie with 15, which is just not true. You could still get a tie with 15. You could get 3 parties each with 5 votes, so you could get 2 parties with 7 votes and an independent or something. You could still get a tie. So that's one amendment. And the other amendment is, in the case of a tie and there is no presiding officer, chief secretary, that the current chief secretary can then trigger fresh elections. Now, the thing about that is that applies to future. The way laws are written, laws aren't written retroactively. So if the Tobago Autonomy Bill is passed and that now becomes law, that will trigger an election automatically. The 2 amendments of the Tobago House of Assembly Act by themselves will not trigger an election, because the 2 amendments of the Tobago House of Assembly Act do not amend Section 22 of the current Tobago House of Assembly Act, which talks about how the House is to be dissolved, because it is the dissolution of the House that then triggers an election. So even those 2 amendments of the Tobago House of Assembly Act cannot cause the House to be dissolved and cannot cause an election to be held, which is why, again, the PDP was saying, let us all 12 come together. We agree that you get chief sec, that we get finance, that all of this happens so that we can move this along. Because one of the things that we could actually do in a situation like that is then agree, let us go back to the House and dissolve the House immediately and get fresh elections. It's one of the things that we could have done if we had agreed to just have the Tobago House of Assembly completely constituted by, doing the negotiations and then having the secretaries and chief sec and all of those positions legally appointed. So in terms of what can trigger an election, only the new Tobago House of the new autonomy bill, unless they go back and again amend Section 22 of the THA Act. And then that can trigger an election if they go back and amend that, which they have not done.
So you are saying that it's quite impossible right now for Mr. Ansel Dennis, who walking around believing that he has the powers to call an election?
According to my understanding of what is written, he would not have the power. And the thing is, though, the other thing is he would not have the power according to how I have read the act, because that part did not change. But the other thing that needs to be understood is even Section 22 speaks about the fact that even after the House is dissolved, an election can't be held in less than 2 months after that point. So even if we agree, even if we dissolve the House Friday, we still have to wait for 2 months before an election can actually be held. Again, another reason why we wanted to come together and say, even in the holdover period, whatever period that is, it could be long, it could be short, let us share the divisions equally so that the island could at least be run efficiently or effectively, even if it's just for the 2-month period before we go back to an election.
So someone named Shirley Cook,
Mm-hmm.
she's speaking here now. Can you address her before I...
Yes. So the question is, why do you believe the PM chose to fix the stalemate legislation without addressing the tiebreaker and oversight mechanism with a council to facilitate shared governance, which is a more equitable approach until the autonomy bill is passed? We don't know why the Prime Minister decided to just run to the Parliament. It was very clear that the Prime Minister really did not care about what half of Tobago wanted when he did that, because there was absolutely no consultation with any of the 6 duly elected assemblymen for the PDP, because these are some of the things we would have said that, let's do it this way. We could just think through it and do it quickly, and instead of going through that whole process. Because the other thing we need to be conscious of is, even with the amendments, one of the amendments is to have 15 seats. We now have 12 seats. It means the EBC now has to go and redraw all of the boundaries and all of that to turn 12 seats into 15.
So that will take over the whole term.
Exactly. We don't know how long that process would take. And the EBC being an autonomous body, well, it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be. The Prime Minister cannot tell the EBC that they have to do that in a month or they have to do that in 2 months. The Prime Minister cannot tell the EBC how fast it should work. So the EBC could then take the next year to do this if possible. And again, I think this is what a lot of Tobagonians don't understand, what is happening, how serious this is. And we really, really need people to start thinking through again, to start pressuring. The same way, listen, the same way.
Yes.
The same way we will, and for example, when we went to the meeting with the Prime Minister, we had contemplated whether we should even attend because he had already gone to Parliament and so forth. But it is because the people of Tobago said, they kept calling my phone, calling Farley's phone, Zia's phone, Watson's. You all should go listen, go meet with him. They were pressuring us. And because we understood that we were representing people and we were not representing ourselves, we went to the meeting. Tobagonians need to also pressure the members of the PNM to not just sit back, because I think that they just want this to continue just like this for the next 4 years until the period comes to an end. And if nothing happens, that is exactly what is going to happen. Mr. Ansel Dennis is going to be there as Chief Secretary for the next 4 years until, the 4-year period is up. And what people also...
No, listen to me. It ain't going to happen.
Well, the Tobago people need to decide.
God will not allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to move in because he works in mysterious ways and he has wonders to perform.
True.
And he had to perform already. So before we move further on, join me in sending some condolences. I always speak as British. Condolences to our brother Chester Birchwood and his other brother. They have lost their brother-in-law.
Yes, Mr. James.
Mr. James. So let us convey such.
Yes, thank you. And Mr. James actually was such a lovely man. He was one of those people who would reach out to me personally and say, Faith, you guys are doing a good job. Keep up the fight. This is an idea that you should run with or something like that. So Tobago really has lost an important son of the soil. And yes, we know he wasn't born here, but he is a Tobagonian. He is a Tobagonian.
I understand he created and developed Canoe Bay.
Yes, exactly. He really has done quite a bit, and it's sad that he is no longer. It's sad that he's no longer with us. So to the entire family, all of his wife, the kids, the brothers, the sisters, the in-laws, everybody, really, really condolences. His funeral was this morning, if I'm not mistaken. This morning or yesterday? This morning, his funeral was. Yeah.
Also, he was the former head of the ADB. He was highly recognized and appreciated for agriculture. So when we lose people like this and have to have people around who doesn't contribute or who can contribute, but they stifle all their reactions and their love for the people of Tobago. I'm not talking about political party. We have to get away from political party, although it is the political party that really carry the drive. Because it is the PDP that making people aware of our constitutional rights and our legislative failures.
Yeah.
And we have lost a good man.
We have.
His timely walking soul rest in peace.
Amen. Amen. So true. So true. And I'm seeing a couple of his family members saying thanks for the condolences.
Yes. Yes. You could read some of the things that people are saying right now.
Yes,
for 2 minutes, we are going to get to our another question.
Sure. Joanne is saying condolences to the family. Certainly, Donette is saying big loss, condolences. Yes, all of Tobago is really, really mourning. Hernandez is saying, thanks for educating us, Chester. Thanks for the condolences, certainly to you, your family members and in-laws and so forth. Certainly. So
may the peace of Almighty God, which surpasses all human intelligence, keep us grounded and focused on the things that will make Tobago move forward. May we come together as one in one alliance and know that we have to fight for the movement forward for the people of Tobago. Not
True.
throwing Trinidad out like how some people want us to start a new form of war. We are even settled to get Tobago autonomy. We're looking now to fight for secession. What we need is something now to give us everything else that we have to get.
Yes.
Brother Keith Rowley, you are a Tobagonian, and if you fail to do what God put you there to do, God will not fail to treat you how he wants you to understand. Next question, please.
So, today, which is April 7th, yes, is World Health Day. What is the current state of Tobago's healthcare system? Is healthcare being adequately delivered to the satisfaction of the populace? Gosh.
Question there for Assemblyman.
Yeah.
I wish when the day come, they can differentiate, you know?
True.
It's not as a senator could be either male or female, but to be calling everybody assemblyman, a president could be either male or female.
True.
Distinguishedly putting man, M-A-N, at the end of someone's profession, we have to be careful and get ready to change it.
Yes, I totally agree with that one. I totally agree. So yes, today is World Health Day. And the theme for this year, 2020, is Together We Can Reach a Fairer and Healthier World. Together we can reach a fairer and a healthier world. Now, as it relates to Tobago, we are not there yet. As a matter of fact, we're kind of far from there. I keep having real arguments with people because I think, okay, let me be 100% honest. I believe that a healthcare system that works is one where an individual does not need to call on the Secretary of Health to get a CT scan done. An individual does not need to call or need to come on Facebook and make a whole big post about anything. A healthcare system that works will work without me, Dr. Faith, or Tracy Davidson Celestine, or the chief secretary saying this needs to be done because they got a complaint that it was not done.
Come on now.
And until we get to that point, I will not be happy with the quality of healthcare on this island. And I know for a fact.
Because some people would not even get the chance to call for help or to complain.
Exactly. Most people don't.
You mean mechanism supposed to be in place working?
Exactly. No one should have to call anyone and say they need this done. Please do me a favor for it to work, because the system should be in place to diagnose, to treat, to deal with palliative care, to deal with the social needs of the patient. When all of those things are in place, then we would be able to say, yes, the healthcare system is working and it is fair for everyone. And that is the thing, because I actually had a good friend of mine was joking with me today about how I am still having all of these ridiculous fights on Facebook, because I was saying that it is so frustrating that for certain people you can get treatment quickly. For certain people, you can get a result quickly. For certain people, you can get things done quickly because of who they are, because of their status. When that is unfair, something as...
And who knows them?
And who knows them exactly? Something as basic, a basic human right as health care should be afforded to every single person, from the highest to the lowest should have the good, very good, basic health care. And that is where we need to be. We are not there now, and we need to get there.
I want you to emphasize how lucky we are in Tobago to have you, because most of your studies are pertaining to HIV. Tell us the status and where you think we are in Tobago with the amount of knowledge our population still need.
Right. we are not anywhere close to where we need to be. And something, there's another statistic that you look at. One of the things we see is that we still have some of the highest rates of non-communicable diseases. So things like diabetes and heart disease and high blood sugar and those things. And we have people who have been on medication. We have people who have been sick with these diseases and they are not getting better. Many of these diseases, if the healthcare system was working the way it should, they would actually get better. So if somebody is coming and their blood sugar is consistently high, even though they're coming to clinic, even though they're supposedly taking medication and the blood sugar is not going down, something is wrong. And that is how we need to think about it. They're supposed to be, yes, we know these are chronic. Yes, we know that you live with them, but you should be able to see a decrease in what the numbers are, for example, as you go along. And until we could get to that point, we still are not. We are not having proper healthcare. What we're having is maintenance. What we're having is a lot of people just continuing to go.
Say it again.
Yeah, that's what we have, maintenance. We have people going to clinic every couple months and you're just getting the medication and you are not really getting better. That is the critical thing. We need to see people getting better. And if you're not getting better, then the healthcare system is not working the way it should.
Well, the same question is there for you because you have other areas in that I want you to hit. I don't even think I have to tell you where, but you can go on like the amount of deaths that we are having from heart attack and such in Tobago and the age group.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing too. We are seeing quite a bit of young people having heart disease, young people heart attacks. And even that is something that the young people who are doing sports and having heart disease and heart attacks and dying and that kind of thing. And those are things we really, really need to look at and we need to investigate. And we need to put systems in place to treat with those things. Those are the things that we need to be working on right now. Even I think even COVID is an opportunity, was or is, still is, an opportunity for us to collectively, comprehensively improve our healthcare system in Tobago. And again, we've kind of missed the mark. If you look at Trinidad, and it kind of annoys me that...
There's a question there concerning COVID. You could read it
yes.
now.
Okay, so the COVID-19 pandemic continues to be a global concern. What is the current status of the Tobago health crisis, COVID-19 health crisis in Tobago? And what do you think when do you think the island will be opened back up? So yes, it actually, I can actually continue my statement because it goes towards answering this question. Most people may not recognize that Trinidad used COVID to improve their healthcare system.
Wow.
If you notice, Couva Hospital, for example, was just laying there. They finished building it, they finished furnishing it, and it is now one of the treatment facilities for COVID-19. There are all of these other places that they are now open and are available to treat patients. They now have all of these additional what did they call the machine that help you to breathe? I can't remember the name right now. But they use the opportunity to get testing machines. They use the opportunity to get other treatment machines up and running under the guise of, yes, we need it for COVID, but when COVID is gone, we'll have it for other things. Tobago did not take up that opportunity. Tobago absolutely did not improve our system using COVID as the example. So, for example, when you hear them talking.
So the Russian opened Roxborough Hospital. Did they take the chance now to say, let me improve it so that patients doesn't have to go to Trinidad again if they are positive with COVID? Talk. Let's
right.
have a conversation.
So yes, Naiwan, thank you. Ventilators. That's the word I completely blanked out. But yes, you are so right. Just before elections, this Roxborough mini hospital was commissioned. And now, months later, we would recognize that no patients are being seen at the Roxborough Mini Hospital. They are now in the process of moving the health center, the old health center, from out the road and putting it into the building. So it will basically just be the service, the health center service, moving from out the road into this new building, because they did not make provisions for what it really takes to run a hospital. They did not do that. So the staffing, you see that they are now advertising for staff for the hospital. My information is that a lot of the equipment that is necessary for it to be a real hospital, meaning you need diagnostic equipment, CTs, your x-rays and all of those things were not planned for and therefore were not purchased. So it's just not available.
So if someone, like in the past, that I was advocating for and speaking about, would have a heart attack at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. in Charlottesville and Speyside still, is the Roxborough Hospital available, or
No.
they still have to wind their way into Scarborough?
You have to go down to Signal Hill. You have to go down to Signal Hill. You absolutely must go. Don't even think about stopping in Roxborough because there's nothing there. So
don't leave Bloody Bay or lands from here and run out into Roxborough.
No. Head to Scarborough, because Roxborough cannot facilitate. Well, there would be no one there. There would be no one there. Physically, there would be no one there to treat with you.
So up to now, they didn't think it might have been wise. I'm kind of questioning you because I know you can answer me. Because people come in on my show and believe that they want to answer what they want to answer. And they want to tell me if they should answer, they will mash up my show. You don't do that.
No, you don't have to.
We all should be what? Disciplined. We should be able to tolerate so we can have production. Exactly. So for productivity tonight, I'm asking the questions, and I know you will answer me. What can people say to themselves? Should people be out there protesting or doing something or fighting to go? You're not going to call for protest, but do you think that we should be doing more and saying more to the powers that be? What about this gimmick of opening up of the Roxborough Mini Hospital? I think Tobagonians should be speaking about everything that has been a gimmick. And we could call in all of the radio. We should be flooding every single radio station that is there. As soon as they open up the lines, we should be calling saying, hey, this is wrong. Let us not continue doing it like that. Every TV station that is allowed. Every time you see your member, your area representative, you should be telling them, hey, this is not what we want. This is not good enough. And it's not just as it relates to the Roxborough gimmick or as it relates to the Goodwood Pavilion that still is the sign that they put up 2 nights before election. It's not just about those. It's about even the 6-6 impasse. It's about all of that, because I think what they are hoping would happen is that the Tobagonian stays the normal, quiet, docile Tobagonian. Because Tobagonians are well-behaved people. Yes, we are well-behaved people. Tobagonians are known for, burning tires in the road and that kind of thing. And they are hoping that people would just kind of forget. And that, 4 years would pass and then you realize, oops, 4 years passed, so let's go back to an election. But Tobagonians need to let them know, no, we are not going to just sit back and allow you to continue doing this in the most undemocratic. And I'm using that word even though I know it is not technically accurate, but the people of Tobago voted for 12 assemblymen. The people voted for 12 assemblymen. And those 12 assemblymen should be equal in the eyes of Tobagonians. And right now, we are not. And that is not good enough. That is not fair. And Tobagonians need to stand up and say, hey, or let's stop that. That is stupidness. We are not going to let you just sit down and do that. Well, I think you answered this question with the COVID very well. Well, no, there was one part of it about the... Have to finish that part. Yes, the part about when will the island be back up and running. I think it's important to know, again, goes back to the Tobago autonomy thing. Tobago does not have any control of when Trinidad and Tobago is back up and running. That is just one thing I just need to throw out there so that people know we have no control of that. Again, going back to why Tobago autonomy is so critical.
So we are basically at beck and call. We should have been the ones getting our own vaccines and not just waiting for vaccines from COVAX. We should have been the ones saying you have Pfizer, you have Moderna, you have the AstraZeneca. So whichever one is better.
And you have the one that I took. Let me tell my people in Tobago, I took Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, yes, Johnson & Johnson. One shot, exactly. Exactly. And we should have been in a position because there's no rule. Remember, the Tobago House of Assembly Act says that the THA is responsible for health on the island. So we could have gone out and procured our own vaccines. And that way, you know, the getting the 60,000 of us vaccinated is so much easier than getting the 1.2 million Trinidadians vaccinated. And then we would have been able to say, well, hey, it really doesn't matter what you all do. We are prepared. We are safe. We have the testing machines. We have the capacity to treat here. We can do what is necessary. So even when we open up, we are not at a disadvantage. But we did not take 2020 and we did not use 2020 to our advantage. All we got, and you all need to think about this. They've talked about all of the money that they took from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and blah, blah, blah. When you ask them how much did Tobago get, they would tell you the 50 million that went to tourism, the 50 million that went to health, and then there was another 10 million that went to something else. That was it. But you hear them talking about hundreds of millions and even in the billions of dollars that came out of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and was spent in Trinidad, while we are in a position where we still, if we have a critical COVID case in Tobago, that person still has to go to Trinidad. We have not improved our system at all.
That is why I took the opportunity, and I think other people should take, because we are going to go to the to the screen where we will read what people, we want to interact with the people who took time off, because Dr. Faith, you would be here and they have some statements and questions. But this is the part that I am saddened over, is that we didn't take the opportunity to say, let us use that building in Roxborough to keep Tobagonians from getting onto that Coast Guard boat.
Yeah, exactly. Or because even before the building in Roxborough was commissioned, we also have a health center in Mariah that was built and is still sitting there. It is still sitting there. Exactly. So we have all of these empty buildings, all of these facilities that are there that are not being optimally used. And we could have used COVID, all of the money that was spent in Trinidad and Tobago. We can safely say that maybe 100 million of it was spent in Tobago, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what was spent in Trinidad. And we are not benefiting from it. We needed to have benefited.
I recognize a lady tell me that she received, because she was quarantined at home, and she was sent one little box of butterfly milk, I think a bread, and something else that was sent to her for her to eat.
Okay.
During the 10 to 14 days of quarantine.
Quarantine. Wow. That's crazy.
Where is the food card?
That is absolutely, well, they're given out for election. I'm sorry.
So let us see what my girl Jane, fresh off the boat, that's her name and a quarter, you know. Read it.
Oh God, she's asking what is going on with the vaccine rollout. Okay, so currently Tobago was given 3,000 vaccines, which technically, because of the kind of vaccine it is, that could only vaccinate 1,005 people from the COVAX. Because it requires 2 shots, yes. And the other thing we need to be conscious of is the expiration date of these vaccines is soon, so we need to use them up quick before they expire. So that is being rolled out right now. You can go to Roxborough, Scarborough and Canaan, but there's a link that you have to actually apply to determine whether you qualify to get vaccinated in Tobago right now.
Who can use a link, and who is qualified?
Well, That question is a little iffy because when you look at the Ministry of Health's stratification for who is supposed to be qualified, it should be the elderly, people with comorbidities, and so forth. But I am also seeing people who are not elderly, who don't have comorbidities, who are getting the vaccine. So maybe they've opened it up to use the vaccines, to use out the vaccines before they expire.
However, we are missing a point.
Mm-hmm.
You and the other assembly, the other 12 assemblymen, I believe you guys should be getting vaccine. You are the leaders of our country. They don't want, so what they might be thinking, if PDP people and get it, they got dead, so we go have more seats. Is that why?
Well, I am hoping not.
You guys have to advocate for your vaccines.
I hope that's not what they're thinking.
I'm telling you, because all these head of the parties, including all in London, they are all goats and they're going to get vaccine. But you young people who will be needed to run our country, right? You guys can die. You guys get vaccine. So I'm having some lives speaking about the 12 assemblymen and women should be vaccinated.
Yes, certainly.
So are you in agreement, seeing that you know about public health?
Yes, and I've always advocated for vaccines. As a matter of fact, I've been one of the people pushing Tobagonians, trying to push back against the people who are anti-vaccination, reminding them that, if you're from Tobago and you go to a primary school in Tobago, 9 times out of 10, you were vaccinated because you need to show your immunization card to even get into the primary school. So vaccines have been around for quite some time. The vaccines that are now available as it relates to COVID-19 are available relatively quickly because the technology to create the vaccines have improved over the years. So I am not afraid of the fact that the vaccines are available so quickly. And I've actually been pushing people, yes, go get the vaccines whenever it comes, whatever is available here, get those vaccines because it is critical.
Oh.
What's that?
It's like measles and polio and
exactly
mumps, rubella. Take the vaccine. I took it. I had a couple of days of sleep, and I welcomed it because I was sleep deprived since the last 2 elections. I'm talking the truth. Elections get me going. I can't sleep. I believe if I sleep, I may miss some news that has been there. And 3 elections here.
It's true.
Election in Trinidad and Tobago twice.
True.
Let's get into the people here now, because PDP is for the people. See what
yes. So Alicia is saying very articulate. Faith, thank you so much. Keegan Job is saying Assemblyman.
Keegan is from Belle Garden,
Yes.
Yes.
Assemblyman is such a sexist thing when we have women actively serving. I agree. If a simple title still cannot be changed, I am not optimistic about the deadlock being resolved anytime soon. Oh no. Avanel is saying Signal Hill is too far for the people living in areas like Charlottesville, Roxborough, Delaford, Speyside, Lansome, and Palatine. That's a fact. It's just too far. Jaron is saying the Roxborough Hospital was opened as an election gimmick, which we all know. How can you build a $80 million facility with only 22 beds to service the entire Tobago East? Very critical questions. It says it did not even have a fully completed central air system. No, that's just ridiculous. That can't be true.
Wow.
That's just ridiculous. That can't be true.
Got to buy fan.
Well, actually, I think they're still using fans up at the Signal Hill Hospital. I don't think the AC situation up there is fixed either. But anyway, Tobago P&M think building a new building and calling it a hospital is enough, when in fact a hospital is a service provided pertaining to healthcare. So true.
So true.
Yeah. And we really have to ask ourselves whether even if we can call it a hospital, because if you look at what is required for it to be a hospital, can we afford that? Is that the best use of our resources on the island? Or can we strategically place, for example, ambulance bases at certain places so that you can get to people quickly to take them to the hospital? No, those are questions that we really have to ask ourselves to determine what is the best use of the money that we have. Chester is saying the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a very good one. I got it too. Oh, good, good.
Ooh, go Chester, go Chester. Look here. So,
yes, yeah.
Faith, you don't have an estimated calculation of how many ambulances we have to service the East?
I am not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. I know that when that question was asked a couple months ago, it may have been before the election, it was less than 5. It was, and this was for the entire island. It was less than 5 because we've always had
island.
Yeah, because we've always had issues with ambulance services and that kind of thing. So it's not as proficient as it should be. Although let me say though, today I actually had a situation where we had to call an ambulance for a resident in the garden, and I timed it, and the ambulance did actually get to her in 20 minutes. Now, in the rest of the world, 20 minutes for an ambulance to get to you is a long time, but in Tobago, it is actually very fast.
If someone, as a health provider yourself, public health, if someone had a heart attack, is 20 minutes a good time for an ambulance?
No, ambulances need to be able to get to you within 5 minutes.
So are you going to stress that we have deficiencies?
Oh yeah, certainly, in every aspect, and that's just one of them.
Should we have a heliport in the East?
That is actually something that but remember, we did have a heliport in Louis-d'Or at a point. Yeah, exactly. But now the thing with the heliport though is that you then need a helicopter. And the thing with the helicopter is that in many instances, what people don't recognize is that what we've been using is just regular helicopters. We have not been using medevac helicopters.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell the people how A&R Robinson was such a visionary? Because the heliport that we have, can you speak on it?
Yes. That was the one in what is that, Louis-d'Or? Yeah, that was in Louis-d'Or. And for exactly this reason, so that if someone in the East needs to get to whether it's to town quickly or to Trinidad quickly, there was a space. Oh, yeah, there was a space for a helicopter to land easily and get that transportation there quickly. Okay, I'm seeing a question here. Off-site is saying, I'm confused. Didn't the minister pay into some vaccines? Yes. So what happened is that the World Health Organization, at the beginning of this COVID thing, what they did was create something known as a COVAX facility, a COVID-19 vaccine program. And the aim of the COVAX facility was to allow for countries to pay into the research and development of COVID-19 vaccines so that at the end of it, they would be able to equitably distribute vaccines to the different countries. Because normally what happens is that the rich countries could pay and they get all the vaccines, and the poor countries can't pay and they don't get anything. So what they did is allow countries to put into like a pool, in essence, so that they could spread the vaccines throughout the world equitably.
WHO, which organization arranged that?
That is World Health Organization, yes, WHO. WHO arranged that. The issue, though, is that there seems to be some issue with the manufacturing of the vaccines, because we seem to be getting, and it's not just Trinidad and Tobago, it seems like all of the countries, at least the Caribbean countries, are getting way less than we originally thought we were going to get. So there's some issue with that facility where the manufacturing of it is happening a little slower than it should. But yes, we did spend, I think it was $60-something million that was spent into that COVAX program, which is why we could get the vaccines that they just delivered last week to Trinidad and Tobago.
So can you, I don't know how good you're at maths, I'm not that good. So do you know that is about 2.5% of Tobagonians that will receive vaccine out of the 3,000?
And that is no, that is actually quite a bit of an issue, because one of the things you need is for what is known as herd immunity. So what is herd immunity? Herd immunity is what happens when you protect an entire population if a large enough percentage of the population develops immunity to a disease. So let's just say you have 10 people in a room. If you have 8 of those 10 people with immunity, whether they were vaccinated or whether they develop immunity on their own, that means you only have 2 people in the room who can get sick, which means only 2 people, exactly, only 2 people in the room who can get sick. And if those 2 people are far away from each other, for example, if one is on one end and the other is on the other end, and we have those 8 people who've been vaccinated in the middle, even if one person is sick, the disease will not jump and get to the other person, because those people in the middle is protecting that one person at the end. So in essence, that is what herd immunity is. And we need at least 65-70% of the population to be immunized for herd immunity to work. So with these very, very small numbers of vaccines coming in, we certainly will not be anywhere close to herd immunity in Trinidad and Tobago anytime soon.
So it means that even if we get that 3,000 vaccines, which is only 1,500 people
in Tobago, yeah,
we still exposed. The whole country still exposed.
Exactly, and that becomes dangerous when the rest of the world is vaccinated, because what people don't recognize is that the vaccines for COVID-19 do not prevent you from getting sick. To some degree, it may, a small percentage of the people, but for most people, what it does is prevent you from getting very sick. So you could actually still have COVID, but you just won't get very sick and you won't die. That is what the vaccine is preventing from happening. So even if the rest of the world is vaccinated and the rest of the world is not dying, they can still get COVID, which means if they come to Trinidad and Tobago, if we are not vaccinated, we could get it, and then we could still get very sick.
That's right.
That is why that is a critical issue. So guys, go out, sign up, get your vaccines, because when you look at the risk associated with not getting vaccines, particularly if you have a comorbidity, you have diabetes, heart disease, or any of those other diseases, it means that your risk of getting very, very sick and your risk of dying is so much higher than other people who are, who don't have those diseases. And the thing about that is, just one quick thing. The thing about that is that our rates of comorbidities in Trinidad and Tobago are very high. So many people have diabetes, so many people have high blood pressure, so many people have heart disease. So it really puts us at a greater risk. Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Faith, what more can we ask you for? But I could ask you something here right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the amount of money that's missing from tourism, how many vaccines do you think we could have gotten from that?
And, what you are looking at is what is known as opportunity cost. Yes. All of the $10 million that went missing, the $430,000 US that was paid to D'Angelo and me Tobago yet. Yeah. And those are just what we know about. Could you imagine how many other instances of missing money may have actually happened that the public does not know about?
What about the money for the whatever that Tracy wants?
Oh, the zip line. What was that? The $3.5 million that was already spent, and no one has seen a zip line yet. Exactly. And that is the kind of money we need, for example, to get ventilators or to get the necessary beds. Imagine I don't even know that we have beds in the hospital in Roxborough, because all of the equipment that they were taking pictures of and showing you at the opening were not from the facility. I understand that they were borrowed from somewhere else, which really, really says something about
people laughing at
use of money.
People laughing at me. They say, "Oh God, Mama Coco." They mean, well, I shouldn't put you on the spot to answer questions like that, but that is relevant. If we retrieve some of most of that money that we have missing right now, where everybody just feel, well, they could pick up on Farley and rough up Farley because Farley talk about a zip line.
Exactly.
That we can't give account for.
Exactly. And when you go to the hospital and you can't get something as simple as a CT scan, I mean, you need to talk about those things.
When you have to walk with your own pillow.
Exactly, exactly. Mm-hmm. So Chester is asking, what is the point of giving vaccines in Roxborough? If you get a bad reaction, you don't have a trauma hospital to deal with it. Now, that's an important question. The reality is, though, that most people, the vast majority of the people who get the vaccines don't have very bad reactions. So that is the likelihood of getting a very bad reaction is
But it
very
could happen.
low. But it could happen. Yeah, it could happen. And it's important that you have, which is why they tell you have to be there. I hope they at least have an ambulance sitting there waiting for you just in case something happens, they can take you to town. At least.
So we have another question here for you. Thank you, Chester. That was awesome.
Let's see. Social media is filled with people expressing shock over the events that occurred in Tobago during the recent Easter weekend. What does this mean for COVID-19 risks on Tobago? Critical.
Something really happened? No, something really happened over the weekend?
Well, what we've been seeing are pictures or videos of a lot of, local Zesalimes, meaning parties where people were congregating in large volumes and not wearing masks, not social distancing, not doing any of the things that we should be doing to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. And this is important because
I understand that our Prime Minister is included in such celebration.
Well, I heard that. I don't know how true it is, but there was an announcement yesterday, I think, that he did contract COVID-19. So he is sick with COVID-19 right now. Where he got it, where is he?
Yeah.
My understanding is that he is in Tobago somewhere, but we don't know exactly. I assume at his residence. No one seems to. They don't want to say publicly where he is, which I don't understand. But they don't want to say publicly where he is. But he is in Tobago, as far as I understand. He's still in Tobago. And there are rumors that even within his circles, there were, limes that should not have happened. People like me stayed home and did very limited things because we knew the risk of people congregating. Plus, we also know that it's Easter weekend. The country shut down. Most people coming from Trinidad want somewhere to go, so they came to Tobago. Mm-hmm.
Did they have any Buku celebration day?
No. There was no official goat racing or anything like that in Buku. No. Mm-mm. But people still, the videos were really showing that people were still having a grand old time in large groups all over the place. So whether we like it or not, I think that within the next week or two, we are going to see higher numbers of COVID-19. Yeah. It is going to be a spike in Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah.
So are you going to give a public health message right now to tell people that if you have been exposed or if you have been around anyone that is suspected of COVID-19, you should do something personally? Can you speak?
Yes, certainly.
Speak up as my public health.
Certainly. If particularly if you feel sick, because we are still getting reports of people who are with flu-like symptoms, who straight up feel sick, still going to work, still interacting with other people. And that is definitely a no-no. If you know that you are feeling sick, you're getting flu-like symptoms, please stay your behind at home. Please. Don't go out there because it's possible that you have it and then you could be spreading it to other people. Now, the reality is most people, if they have it, would be fine, but you could then spread it to the one person who has a heart problem or has diabetes, and then that person ends up being critically ill or even dying because you were irresponsible.
So do you have to show any sign? I know the answer, but I want you to tell the people.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to? What's the question?
Do you have to show any sign or symptoms or just being in an area?
Well, actually, a lot of people a lot of people with COVID are what is known as asymptomatic, meaning they don't show any signs and symptoms of being sick. Those with the signs and symptoms are the ones who are more, well, no, we don't know that for a fact, because there are studies that show that even if you're not showing signs and symptoms, you may still transmit it to other people. There are studies that are showing that. So, which is why the precautions of getting the vaccine, if you are able to, the precautions of using your hand sanitizers or washing your hands continually, wearing the mask continually, staying away from large crowds, doing all of those things, that is what will protect us, and that is what will prevent it from spreading continually along the island. Because remember, as I said, we did not take advantage and ensure that our hospitals and all of that can treat COVID-19 properly if you have a severe infection. So if anything happens to you in Tobago, they still have to cart you off to Trinidad in the what is it, the boat, the Coast Guard vessel to take it to Trinidad. We still cannot really treat you effectively in Tobago. So we have to make sure that we stay safe in Tobago.
Do you want to emphasize a little before people believe, well, you're just here as a propaganda queen for PDP? Let them know that this is what is required.
Yeah.
Whether you're a PNM or you're a PDP. Because
exactly.
Keith Rowley and the other people names that allegedly out there, they are PNM.
Exactly. Because it is no discriminator. Anyone can get it. Anyone can get it, which is why we have to be responsible. We have to be responsible.
We saw Ali G had something to say. Can we see Ali G? Yes.
Sure. It says bad decisions are being made left and right. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine should have been chosen for Trinidad and Tobago so that one vaccine could count as a complete vaccination. With the bad record keeping, along with corruption, etc., along with other failed protocols in the country, vaccinating the whole country will take forever. That is so true. And now what we have to do now is really just say that let us open it up and look for other markets, look for other options. And yes, the Johnson & Johnson, the Moderna, all of the others are also available out there, and we need to start thinking about how to get them. Miguel is asking, is there a special storage procedure for the vaccine? Is TRHA prepared to store that amount of vaccine? So the vaccines that we have, the AstraZeneca, they don't require the ridiculously low temperatures for them to be stored. So that's fine. We could just store them. We've been storing vaccines in regular, it's basically like a regular fridge. We could store vaccines in cool temperatures like a regular fridge and that kind of thing, which is what we've been doing with all of the other vaccines that we've had. So yes, the TRHA does have the capacity to store those vaccines because they don't require those sub-zero temperatures like some of the others do. Lindy is saying, well explained, Faith. I was very hesitant about getting my vaccine because of so many theories. I think I'm sold now. I'm glad. Oh, good. I'm happy that you are sold.
Well, we have to take into consideration if TRHA fridge is working, how often will current go? And we have to take into consideration if we have generators to back up when current goes so that our medication will not lose their value.
I know that has actually happened in the past, where we didn't have a generator, there wasn't electricity, the fridge broke down, and we ended up having to throw away the vaccines for not the COVID ones, before COVID.
So now that we know, because sometimes we have our deads, they bring in dead for viewing, and our dead smells because they listen to me. They don't have ample refrigeration for our mortuaries and funeral home. Can we speak on that? Can we make people think that Tobago, we are going right back to the ice box? I grew up seeing, you don't know about the ice box, but your mother can tell you that they used to bring dead. When you have a dead in the dead home, they won't take the dead from you. They bring a box with ice and a box in a box, and they lay your dead in your living room or in your gallery, and they have a pan underneath to take the water that drips from the dead body area. I'm talking.
Wow.
Say wow. Are we going
Wow.
to end up back there because we have T and Tech not getting what they need?
Yeah, that is just ridiculous. But it also is part of, you then have to ask yourself about the services at the hospital and at the health centers, because all health facilities should have working generators. That should just be part of how the facilities function, just in case something happens. That is absolutely necessary.
And you speak positively that they have it?
There are generators. They are question about whether they are whether they are functioning. That's the part that you need to question, whether they're actually working properly. And I cannot confirm. As a matter of fact, I don't know. I can't confirm that they're working properly.
Dr. Duke will fail inspection if the generators are not working.
Yes, exactly. But that's the thing. We don't have a similar system here. Remember, our hospital, who is going to inspect us? Unfortunately.
Doctor,
yeah.
Can you come in to say anything, Dr. Faith? She has done excellent, and doctor, you are a clinical one. Can you say anything now before we get Dr. Faith closing statements? Dr. Faith, you have done well.
Thank you.
As usual.
Thank you so much.
Comments there. Can you read some?
Yeah, they need to go after D'Angelo and his management team for that money. I completely agree. Oh, how much for the new beautiful I Love Buku sign? Oh, that is a whole different discussion. That sign is just, yeah, we don't know. We know that the I Love Tobago sign was about $1 million. That is what they told us. So we have to ask. We don't know what the I Love Buku sign, how much that cost, and whether that is a really good idea right now, whether we could have used the money to do other things, whether it's part of a larger tourism plan, so many questions, and
or part of another corruption gimmick.
Quite possible.
But money laundering. They might want to kick me up, but I'm just saying what I know. Once you can't give me back D'Angelo money and all the money that tourism use up, and we can't see anything to excite us or entice us in tourism, I will keep speaking.
Or those bus sheds, those $50,000 bus sheds. Oh, Heavenly Father, those bus sheds. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, Jaron is saying the opportunity cost of corruption grows greater with time. That is a fact. The PNM in 25 short years reduced our country to Mendy. How do you pronounce that? Mendicancy? I have no idea what that word means, Jaron. The main authors of corruption, 20 years and more than 40 billion later, and infrastructure is still woefully lacking. Certainly, definitely, I agree with you.
What we are saying now, can we speak now to Mr. Joel Jack? He still is in power, that he can release some more money that Tobago can buy their vaccines. That is in charge of their own health.
That is what we should be doing, yeah. And by the way, one thing that the Minister of, whenever questions were asked to the Minister of Health about monies for Tobago coming to the TRHA, his response always was, the Tobago House of Assembly needs to apply to the Ministry of Finance for their own funding.
Oh.
That used to be his answer, which is why we have not gotten any money. That used to be his answer. So you're right. The Secretary of Finance needs to be on the ball with this one and apply for the same money that they've been applying for from Heritage and Stabilization Fund. We could have done that, but we didn't do it.
So do you know that Ansel Dennis, whether or not, I don't want to call his name because somehow his skin too thin for the position that he's in. You understand what I'm saying? He want to play foul, but then he want to behave like a duck. You understand me? He want to play the ram, but then you want to behave like a heel. I don't know what these people want to do. You want to keep your pants zipped down, but I must close it up for you. No, that is not what's supposed to happen. So I understand that he's in quarantine also.
Yes, he did. There was a statement from his office saying that he was I can't remember if it was a primary contact or a secondary contact of somebody who was positive. So he is still in quarantine as far as I'm aware. Yep.
So this is something that I want to ask. It may seem out of place or order, but as a fellow Tobagonian and as a medical doctor that trained abroad, do you think that the treatment that Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus received, it is kosher?
Well, Dr. Denise is probably one of the most long-suffering people I know. Because she has given tirelessly to that party, and the party is very clear that they do not want her and did not want her, and that she was not really one of them. So the fact that she jumped out as an independent, I think was commendable, because there are certain principles that she stood for that needs to be, that she was strong enough to jump out as an independent. And I personally commended her. I saw her one day in Scarborough, and I congratulated her for having the courage to do that, because that really took some courage on her part. But it just shows how that party thinks about people and how that party deals with people.
And they never had a medical doctor in charge of health.
Of health, yeah. Exactly, but it is what it is. And that's why Tobagonians, the 60,000 of us, really need to look at what is happening and what we've been given, who is offering themselves, and really need to determine what is best for Tobago. It's as simple as that. You have to determine what is best for Tobago. You have to determine what you want for this island. And we had an opportunity to make that decision in January. Many of us did, but many of us didn't. When you look at the EBC report, over 20,000 people did not vote.
Wow.
In January, exactly. Yeah, did not vote in January. And we now have to deal with the consequences of that kind of inaction. Because many people, even people who vouched that they would have supported the PDP after the election, they told you, well, we thought you would have lost, so we didn't go out and vote again.
Oh.
And that is why we are in this position now. So I keep telling people, Tobagonians need to be conscious of the fact that we have to live with the consequences of our action. Right now, what is happening now is a consequence of our action. And we have to live with it. And now we have to decide, what are we going to do next? Are we going to sit back and allow it to just happen? Are we going to just stay quiet? Are we going to say, well, we can't do nothing about it and let it be for the next 4 years? What are you as an islander? What are you as a citizen? What are you as a resident of this island willing to do? What are you going to do? You have to make that decision. What are you doing to leave for the legacy for your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren? What are you going to do? You need to make that decision for yourself.
Second to last of my personal right now, while we're talking as the spirit moves, we have some vocal women that supporting the PDP. They rush out in public, like Ava Macmillan, Ava daughter Lady Mac, Sister June Sister June Gregg.
Right.
Can you say anything about these women who coming out, because other people have it to say, but they're not coming out there and put their life on the line?
And I know we are so thankful for everyone who is now speaking out, because the reality is people on this island are afraid.
I know.
They are afraid of the persecution. They are afraid of victimization. They are afraid that the only job that they have is with the THA, and it can be taken away from them just like that. So those people who are speaking out are people who are saying, to hell with it. We are no longer going to allow you to enslave us, and we are going to keep speaking out. And that's what we need. We need people to get that courage, because remember, the only way they can stay there and they can keep victimizing you is if we vote for them, or if we stay home and don't vote. Yeah. That's the only way they would stay there. So we have to thank those who are beginning to speak out and encourage others to speak out, so that they know you're not just sitting back quietly accepting what they are doing.
I'm proud of them. And I was to ask you tonight, so you guys must understand that a lot of people really want to. But as you said, and I know for sure, quality of victimization, because of it doesn't bother me, because I'm not depending on them for anything. Even God prepare my kids. But the reason why I have to hold back sometimes is because of our safety, because of the sycophantic attitude of the people of Tobago. They kind of copying acts of violence
Acts
and
of terrorism.
acts of terrorism that they
Yeah.
copied from around the world, and they bringing it now into Tobago. So we have Miguel. Miguel is telling you something.
Yes, the administration that is temporarily running Tobago's affairs now should have make having the COVID vaccine available to the entire population a number one priority instead of spending money on a I love signage. I completely agree.
My
Exactly.
How can you have 60,000 people and give us 3,000 vaccine, which that vaccine is a dividend. You have to do it by 2, so it's 1,500 people.
Exactly. Exactly.
Argyle and Belle Garden and Roxburgh have more than 1,500.
Yeah. Yep.
So not even the constituents of Watson Duke
Could be fully vaccinated.
could be fully
Exactly.
vaccinated.
That's true.
Knowing that the amount of people can't who are adults, but we have children that live in the midst of this 1,500. Listen to me good. That is open also by going to school, and a teacher doesn't have her vaccination.
Exactly. So true. And they're about to open up schools again to have more students go back into classrooms and so on. So again, the risks are there. Avanel, Keegan is saying, yes, Avanel, the PNM are wasting money. Change is needed. Couldn't agree more.
If we can get to the more in, because we have a final question for you.
Why didn't Tobago Health Services set up random COVID-19 checks on arrival at the port of entry? That I don't know. That I honestly don't know. One of the things I've always spoken about is our overall response to COVID-19.
Wait. This is such an important question. So when someone comes off a boat or a plane, there's no one there to check their temperature?
Well, they should. And there seem to have been lapses in that. And even when there was a scare, because over the weekend, or maybe at the beginning of the weekend, there was a scare that there were a couple people who came from Trinidad who should have been in quarantine or something, and they had to send them back. And there seemed to have been a lot of confusion in terms of what is the protocol. Do we keep them in Tobago? Do we send them back on a boat? Do we send them on a plane? You know, the individuals who were working on in actively a part of it were relating that it was just so confusing. They were getting so many different pieces of information, different instructions. So that tells you that all of that stuff was not well planned out at all.
So when someone going into Pigeon Point, where they're charging you money to go in, they don't test you there for fever or high temperature?
I don't think so. You would think that they would, but I don't think so.
So when you're going and sit down at that famous favorite bar, they don't check you there neither?
I don't know.
Are there stools that they sit on at the bar?
But remember, for the bars, should we even really be at the bar sitting? Remember, we had provisions where we could go buy and go and not necessarily come together and sit on Lime and congregate. So you have to ask all of those questions about whether the protocols are even being adhered to, the basic protocols, whether they're being adhered to. And the answer in many instances doesn't seem to be yes, unfortunately.
So this is where you comes in. This is where your expertise and your profession comes in. Public health, public safety. You can't take someone that was in tourism or somewhere off the street or just came from her hiatus in Costa Rica and put her as Secretary of Health. Are we losing our mind in these serious times?
Well, unfortunately, that is, that's the thing to it. Tobagonians have, again, I keep going back to harping on the fact that we need to be very clear about what we want. We need to be very, very clear about what we want and what we accept as good and accept as normal. Because for far too long, we have been putting square pegs in round holes. For far too long, we have just been electing people who with no real skills and no real competencies, and not electing the people who can actually run the island. And we have to stop doing that. We have to absolutely stop doing that. And I'm glad that Tobagonians are finally seeing that the PDP is presenting people who actually have technical capacity and who could actually run the different divisions. And Tobagonians are finally recognizing that what has been happening all of this time is not what needs to continue happening. We have an opportunity to change this island. We have an opportunity. We just have to jump at it. We just have to actually do it.
How can my cousin Nadine Stewart move from Secretary of Tourism, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of maybe youth, whatever, something else she had. She had 3 positions and moved now to, and culture, she was in culture. I don't know how cultured she really is to be taking jobs that she's not qualified for, and put her now to work with another family of mine, Tracy Davidson Celestine, as what? Secretaries and
An assistant, yeah.
Assistant in health.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have to
taking this.
Exactly. We have to decide.
So, tell us what you just was about to say.
No, I was just saying that I think the THA has been around for 40 years now. At least this incarnation of the THA has been around for 40 years. When you look at the budget every year, yes, we ask for 4 or 5 billion and we only get 2 to 3 billion. But when you look at the amount of money that is spent, we are certainly not getting value for money. Even though we're not getting enough, what we are spending is being spent on the wrong things many times, and a lot of it is being siphoned out for corruption and that kind of thing. So we are not developing at the rate that we need to be developing. And Tobago has an opportunity to change that. I think the 6-6 victory, because we see it as a victory. We see it as going from nothing to 2 to now 6, as winning quite a bit. That shows that Tobagonians are coming around, coming out of the cocoon and saying, yes, we know that we deserve better, but we still have to continue that work. We still have to continue the work of knowing that we deserve better and then putting the steps in place to ensure that we do actually get better. That is something that we can do.
So, Dr. Faith, before we go to this last and closing statements, I am out here speaking to everybody, including the PDP. We have never gotten an Indian representative in the Tobago House of Assembly. I am saying someone was on my show last week and he thought that I mean to bring up Indians from Trinidad. We have Indians that were born and grow in Trinidad, and right now they are pensioners. Some of them die. They work on the Roxborough Estate, Belle Garden Estate, Richmond Estate, Shaladil Estate, Delaford Estate, and their children. I went to school with Indians. When are we going to see an Indian PDP?
No,
listen. That born and grow in Tobago.
No, that I cannot answer, because honestly, I had never even thought about the fact that we've never had an Indian representative. But you are right. There are many families within Tobago who've been here and born and grow here. So they have every birthright to being here as much as we do. And I think we definitely need to reconsider. We need to open it up and to really, really say, well, yes, all of we is from here, and we are Tobagonians first and everything else after. That is certainly, and it's actually one of the reasons, not to digress a little bit, but it's actually one of the reasons why the PDP is very, very, we are so annoyed when the other party tries to use that kind of race baiting kind of thing that they try to use by trying to say, well, the PDP is part of UNC. And the reality is they're only saying that because UNC is primarily Indian, and they're trying to use that racial racism kind of thing to scare people.
Like when they came in, don't be naive, let's get to the point. People want to talk about it. Like when the people, national movement, bringing the Calcutta ship conversation.
Exactly.
Can you try to help now so that people could understand that we are not against Indians, and Indians were born and they walk on the estate just like us and our foreparents. And
exactly.
I see at least a councillor out of PDP.
Yeah,
No
that is definitely something that is worth thing. But you're right. That whole Calcutta ship was pure racism, even in the last election, because even Mrs. Davidson Celestine admitted that they were the ones who were sticking up the posters with Mrs. Kamala Prasad Besessa's Watson's My Face on it to give that impression that we are part of UNC. And the only reason that is important is because UNC is Indian. We know that. You don't even have to, that is part of their thought process. But the PDP has always said that we are Tobagonian first. And that is all Tobagonians, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of any of those things. We are open and welcoming to everybody. And we will continue to be open and welcoming to everybody. As long as you love this island and you want to work for this island.
Have Chinese in your group? Do you guys have
Yes. Actually, one of our
speak up?
Yeah, one of our contestants, one of our candidates in the 2017 election was mixed with Chinese heritage as well. So, I don't know that race has never been an issue for us, and we will not make it an issue because we want everybody who loves Tobago to work hard for this island.
To show that race isn't?
Yeah, it's not.
Probably have to go out of the box and be the first. Let PDP be the first in everything that's good. Let PDP be the first, and I know PNM may try to rush because that's all Tracy doing right now. She's sitting down and listen to what I have to say, and then she come up with conclusions. But I want PDP to show that we are not against Indians.
We are certainly not.
What the hell it matters if Kamala likes PDP?
Exactly.
You like who like you.
Exactly.
You respect who respect you.
And we are talking to everybody. And it's actually one of the things that we were saying.
I'm talking about PDP.
Yeah, well, yes. And one of the things that even when we talk about the Tobago Autonomy Bill and going to Trinidad to talk to Trinidad, the entire parliament, we are going to talk to everybody. It doesn't matter who you are down there. It doesn't matter which party you represent, because we need everybody to get on board with this, and this is what we have to do.
See what Stephanie Roberts is saying.
We're talking about suing.
Do. You are in a public forum, you're in a public arena, you're in a public space, doing things for the public, but every time your name call, you want to sue. All because PNM have this wrong idea. I'm saying this right now, that the monies that they're spending from the THA belongs to the PNM.
So true.
Please explain to the people tonight before you close in your closing statements that any money spent in the THA is the taxpayers' dollars.
Exactly. And it's actually one of the questions when a couple of weeks ago when I was interviewed by Fazir on his program, there was a person in the audience speaking about the fact that one of the reasons the other party may be resistant to us sharing power is that the PDP may actually come in and see something and we may speak publicly about it. And my response was, so what if we speak publicly about it? It's public funds. It's not my money. It's not your money. And it's Tobagonians' money. So if money is being spent, we should be able to say this is what is happening. And the fact that that question was even raised shows that they are so afraid of people speaking up about the kind of mismanagement that has been happening on the island. We don't have anything to be afraid of. As long as you are spending government money, you are spending your people's money, and that needs to be publicly accounted for. And you should not be afraid of being publicly accounted for. And anyone who is afraid of government money being publicly accounted for needs to check themselves, because it means they are doing things, or they know that things are being done that is unethical and illegal, and that in itself says something.
Dr. Faith, your closing statements, although I want you to close knowing that an investigation should be asked for and held about all the US dollars that cannot be accounted for at Pigeon Point, Store Bay, Pigeon Point, yes, Store Bay and Roxborough and Argyle Waterfall.
Okay then. Investigations are needed with everything, certainly. So, okay, so my closing points. Thank you so much for having me on this program. It is always an honor to be asked, and I would, as long as I have the time, as long as I'm able to, I would certainly adhere and I would come on and continue the discussions. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who is listening. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Thank you all for the questions and the comments and all of those things. It really is, it's uplifting to know that people are here listening and tuning in and participating in this process. Thanks to the people who voted for me, who voted for us, because I would not have been here if we did not have your support. And to those who we've gained, who may not have even voted for us, but we've now gained your support, thank you so much for continuing to give us a friendly word or an encouraging word, because we certainly need that. To help us with this impasse, you all certainly need to be vocal. Start calling your radio stations, your TV stations, writing, meeting your assemblymen. Ensure that every time you see one of us, you let us know how unhappy you are with this process that's happening. Let me just plug, Assemblyman Farley will be doing a press conference tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. It will be live on our page, so you could get, you'll hear a lot more about what our plans are as we are going forward and so forth. And Mama Coco, it really is an honor being on this program with you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm going to reciprocate right now. I am going to tell you how elated I am and how blessed I am to have you on the show. And your eloquence surpassed so many other people that I can't do without having you. Although you had promised me Sister Zia Hackett.
Yes, I need to let her know.
She was ready to run for an election, but I haven't heard from her, and I don't know if she will speak with you. I would love to have her.
Certainly.
Not because of her beauty and her charm, which I always speak about, but because I want the people to know of her and know more about Sister Zia Hackett. I don't want the other men to feel that I don't want them. Any one of them welcome here. So we are supposed to have Brother Watson Duke back on Saturday.
Okay.
Because I am experiencing a little stuff on my own to deal with, I did call for a cancellation of the whole weekend. But I will change my mind and I will still have it because we have some things to talk about.
Okay.
You see, to whom much is given, much is required of the same.
True.
When you are given much, you must be given a chance to express what you know. For he who knows, but cannot express what he knows nothing. True. And I give God thanks for you, and I thanks for your mother for having you. As I always tell you that you wasn't an easy birth. And I'm proud to have you, and I'm glad to know that you are keeping yourself educated. You know, some people, they learn, but they stop reading. They stop researching. You can't be relevant if you stop reading.
True.
You can't be relevant if you're not taking refresher courses. And we as a people, we need to get into ourselves some more before we can allow people to judge us for who they think we should be.
True.
So my piece I leave with you. And I want to thank my daughter, Dr. Duke. She's doing a marvelous job.
Yes, thanks, Cindy.
Yes. I don't have anything to say tonight. But then at the same time, we give God praise and thanks. We want to thank our audience. We want to thank them for their diligence. We want to thank them for their intelligence. We want to thank them because they are willing to learn what they want to know of. You know, the willingness to learn is paramount, you know, to what you want to speak of.
True.
You can't want to speak on topics that you have nothing, you don't know anything about.
So true.
You can't want to be a representative of the Tobago House of Assembly and you're just grassroots. We perish for the lack of.
True.
So why don't we seek knowledge? in order to be responsible, transparent, and to set ourselves apart from corruption.
So true.
So peace to everybody. Good night. And may God bless us individually according to our works. I can't ask for God to bless you when you ain't doing anything for blessing. Everything you do is for a curse. I'm going to ask God to bless us according to our righteousness. Stick around, my love, for 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor being here, and yes, I am relishing in the assemblyman title. I am. So thank you for having me on.
Yes, you are so welcome. We are waiting for you.